How is it still a work in progress? I mean, last year it was a slam dunk. Is it not a slam dunk this year?
It's still a work in progress.
Absolutely no surprises here. Trent Baalke will not be telling anyone who the Jaguars are drafting number 1 overall. Breaking news this morning as we start drive time. The Jaguars have franchise tag offensive tackle Cam Robinson, 3 years, $54 million. This is just a report by Ian Rappaport. This has not been confirmed by the Jaguars as of now, but we kind of knew this was coming, so interesting that it happens during draft week. Welcome in Jaguars Drive Time. We are live here on a Tuesday morning, and we are here in Daly's Place getting ready for the draft party tomorrow. Big day. Draft starts tomorrow, and big news this morning with Cam Robinson. It's not much of a surprise. We knew this was coming, but to have this solidified, it's nice that it's over with.
Well, it's solidified. It's a 3-year deal, and I think everybody's going to talk about does this take offensive tackle off the table, et cetera. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it solidifies a player that the Jaguars believe. You've been hearing this ever since the end of the 2021 season. They believe he is an ascending player. They believe he is a player who has his best years ahead of him. This locks down the left tackle position, certainly for this year. If they draft a left tackle or if they draft a tackle, I assume they could put that player somewhere else. It solidifies a spot that they wanted to get done. It's not surprising, though I think some people will react to it in such a way that it'll affect tomorrow night. I don't think it affects tomorrow night whatsoever.
Yeah, they were planning on this happening. It's a lot of money, but that's what left tackles make you see. Right. that money sign. You're like, wow, that's a lot. But
I think it's in line. It's not a top-of-the-market deal where he's resetting the market. It's a 3-year deal, which means it's relatively short. He's got 5 years in. If he plays this year out, then he is in his 8th year. He'd be a 9th-year guy for a 3rd contract. That's not out of the possibility at all for a left tackle. So it's not necessarily a tremendously long-term deal. Within the range of deals, it's actually a relatively short-term deal. It gives him a chance to make a lot of money on this deal. And as a left tackle, those guys play a long time. Cam Robinson could walk away from this game very, very wealthy.
Yes, makes things even more interesting for tomorrow night, the first round of the NFL draft, as we get into big things. And big thing one is offense or defense. Who are the Jaguars going to take? Right now there are 4 options, so we think: Evan Neal, Ekwonu, Hutchinson, and Walker. So you have to decide, are you going to take a staple on defense that helps your defense right away, or now with Cam Robinson being signed, are you thinking more long-term offensive line? Well, one guy that has absolutely shot up the rankings is Trayvon Walker, almost the favorite as of right now for the number 1 overall pick. So how will he work in the system if he is the guy?
Every scheme's a little bit different. Coaches use them a little bit differently. So where does that guy fit in our scheme versus where he might fit in another scheme? So that's talked about a lot, and you really leave that up to the coaches. You have a vision as a personnel guy, where you think a guy could play or should play, and then you just, you give them to the coaches and you hear them out, and that's how you just kind of put the pieces together that way.
Big thing, too, is what about wide receiver? It is no question the Jaguars need more speed on this roster, and everyone thinks they're going to take a wide receiver at some point. A lot of eyes are on that 33rd overall pick, the first pick of the second round, to possibly get that done, but the consensus is that all the top receivers might be gone by then. So do you draft up or trade up to get that guy at wide receiver? And Coach Peterson gives his thoughts about the draft class overall.
It's a good group, maybe not as deep as it's been, I think, in years past. The top of the list is pretty good. There are some guys that are obviously been nicked up, coming out of the college season and whatnot. But again, it just goes back to just us evaluating, them as a player, their talent, and not so much, how can they fit us, but where are they from a talent standpoint, and once you get down the road a little bit, there's a little bit of a drop off, but there's still guys that can come in and compete for roster spots, play special teams. You look at that value as well, from a coaching perspective, and how much special teams have they played, during college. So that's kind of been with the receiver group. We look at it the same kind of every year, and there are some guys there that can make a difference.
And finally, big thing 3 is the first day. It was the first day of voluntary veteran mini camp. There's so many phases these days. It was the first day yesterday where the Jaguars could be on the practice field with their new coaching staff, and we caught up with wide receiver Marvin Jones, who's getting to know his new head coach a little better.
Definitely a player's coach, he's been through it, and he's been in our seats. So you always got to give him that max respect because he has played just like we have. So he knows what he's doing. Great energy, and that resonates throughout the whole coaching staff. So it's perfect.
And there you have it. Those are big things. A lot going on this week. We are hearing so much. If you log on Twitter, you hear who the Jaguars are taking, and it changes every 10 minutes. So we all have our opinions on who the Jaguars should take. We're hearing everything about who we think the Jaguars will take. Now with Cam Robinson having that tag, it really doesn't change much about the offensive line. If you think you're taking offensive line, you think it's because it's a long-term solution. Defense, short-term at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the theory there is if you're taking Hutchinson or if you're taking Walker, it can put somebody opposite Josh Allen. It can make your defense much better very quickly. If you're taking offensive line, you're solidifying it overall. You're not exactly sure where now with Cam Robinson being on the tag. I mean, not being on the tag and being around for minimum 2 years on a 3-year deal, but most likely 3 because most guys who sign 3-year deals will play that whole deal out. Overall, though, you go back to that theory that left tackle and right tackle now, 10 years ago, you would have never taken an offensive lineman at number 1 if he wasn't going to fit right in and play left tackle. Now, most people, and I believe I've heard Doug say this, right tackle, left tackle, not a huge difference in terms of the value, in terms of the role, because defenses move their best pass rusher all along their defensive front. So could you take Aquanu, put him out at right tackle? I doubt that would happen the first year. I think if he was the pick, he would be more of a Quentin Nelson type who is a guard who comes in and solidifies you in the middle. Doug Peterson, remember when he was in Philadelphia, I think we're going to talk about this later as well, had a great offensive line with 2 really, really good tackles on the outside. They don't mind being good at all spots. It's a little bit of a different approach than a lot of teams would take these days. A lot of people think you don't have to have a great, highly drafted offensive line.
Yeah.
But Doug Peterson believes in the opposite. He believes that you need to be good on the offensive front with elite talent on the offensive front. So, Ashlyn, at this point, nothing surprises me out of the number 1 picks.
Yeah.
If it's out of that group, and we'll go over them. Evan Neal of Alabama, Aiden Hutchinson of Michigan, Ike Ekwonu of North Carolina State, and the 4th is Trayvon Walker of Georgia. Those are the guys people are talking about.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, Trent Baalke or Doug Peterson have not said those are the 4. So is there a wild card? I don't know. I think it comes out of those 4. And I have less of an idea what to believe about the number 1 pick than I've had in probably 10 years following this thing.
I know, it's interesting. Everyone's asking, how's the week going? How's the prep going? And it's funny because we relate so much to last year where we knew who the number 1 overall pick was going to be for 6 months. So you have everything planned out. Everything's ready to go. Now you have 4 different options. And it very well could not even be those 4 options.
Think about this. Last year may have been on the Rushmore of slam dunk picks.
Yeah.
Of the last 30 years I've been following the draft, maybe since 83 or 84 when I was a kid. I don't know that there's ever been a year where it was as sure. Andrew Luck was sure, way back, but everybody knew Trevor Lawrence probably for 2 years was going to be the number 1 pick. And the Jaguars had that pick, so they easy. Now all of a sudden you fast forward, and they may have one of the hardest selections of the last 20 years. So welcome to the NFL.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because you look at all 4 of these guys, and they all are fantastic players, but there's not that home run, really sexy pick that we always talk about. And I keep going back to the defense, and I see the argument for Walker or Hutchinson, but the state that the Jaguars are in right now, winning 3 games last year, and Baalke saying, I'm not going to be around for another number 1 overall pick. It just, to me, seems like you got to go with the safe, and I hate saying that, the safe, maybe we could say solid choice instead with Hutchinson.
Well, and I locked into that early on. I talked about Hutchinson being the safe pick. That's probably what I would do because I've been talking about it so often, and I agree with you. I'm the safe pick guy. At the same time, the reality is if there was a truly safe pick, everybody would take it and there'd be no disagreement. There's no such thing as a really safe pick in the draft. Is he the safest? I think so. Does he have the best technique in terms of pass rush? Do you sort of know I'm going to get at least 7 or 8 sacks out of this guy a year? Yeah, you feel that with this guy. But if there was a truly safe pick, we wouldn't be having the discussion. Every one of these 4, and even Kayvon Thibodeau, who's the other guy who you would think maybe
Could
in
sneak
some
him.
sort of conversation, they all have risk. So I got an ozone question a couple days ago about wouldn't Walker and Ekwonu be reaches? I don't know what reach means. I think if reach is risk, which I assume it is, then every one of these guys is a reach to a degree because there's no guarantees with this spot. There's never a guarantee.
Yeah.
It feels like there's less of a guarantee with these guys, but I don't think it is necessarily a deal where it's automatic that you're going to look back in 5 years and say, oh boy, that was a bad draft. These guys have a chance to be good players. They're just not as guaranteed as you felt about guys coming in maybe the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it just makes Trent Baalke's job a little more difficult.
Yeah.
He's done his due
That's why
diligence.
he makes the big bucks, Shlyn.
Yeah, the key word was due diligence. I think they said that like 10 times on Friday.
That'll get said a lot during the draft.
Yes, it will. Hey, stay with us on Jaguars Drive Time. Much more to come. We're going to have Brian Sexton from Vegas shortly talk much more about this offensive line and Cam Robinson's new deal on the Jaguars Digital Network.
Can you feel it? Every spring, Earth's gravity shifts as water wanders the planet in a magnificent mass-altering dance. So feel the shift and be pulled toward a new Cadillac. Find yourself attracted to dynamic sedans like the striking CT5, or be drawn to luxurious SUVs like the 3-row XT6. Gravitate to greatness and visit your showroom today. Cadillac. Be iconic. Visit your local Cadillac dealer today.
Hi folks, Frank Frangie here to tell you where to find the most authentic Southern Pit barbecue in all of Jacksonville. That's right, Bono's. For 72 years, Bono's has been smoking real pit barbecue right here on the First Coast. Smoked for hours, served in minutes, and always cut to order. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at TIAA Bank Field. Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you want great barbecue, head to Bono's today. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Do you know someone whose work in the community deserves the limelight? Nominate them at TIAABank.com/community champion so we can celebrate their impact on equity, education, or the environment. Each champion will enjoy a Jaguars game from VIP field seats, see their story told on the big screens, and receive $1,000 towards their cause. Nominate someone before May 6th. Visit TIAABank.com/community champion for details.
John Oehser, you will not believe what Daly's Place has in store for you this year. We're here at Daly's Place right now. How fitting is this? The likes of Tim McGraw, Lumineers, Dave Matthews Band, Keith Urban, much, much more coming up. For a full list of shows and to get your tickets right now, visit dailysplace.com. We're back, Jaguars Drive Time. It's a Tuesday. I'm sorry, I keep saying Tuesday because I'm used to doing the show on Tuesday.
It's a Wednesday, Shlyn.
Today is Wednesday.
No, there's no getting around the calendar.
Gosh, because tomorrow is Thursday, and
Tomorrow's the draft.
is the first day of the NFL draft. You can come to this awesome draft party. Tickets are still available on Jaguars.com. We're going to have Doug Peterson on the stage, player panel. John, you're going to be
You'll
a part
be there
of it.
as well?
I will be there.
Okay.
You will be there.
And the Bucky Brooks will be on there.
Yes.
So it's a star-studded show.
Yes.
Even without me, it's a star-studded show. Shlyn. I can't even say that.
That's a tongue twister, to say the least. Okay, let's bring up the breaking news this morning, which is all about Cam Robinson and reaching that new deal. It's a 3-year, $54 million deal reported by Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. The Jaguars have not confirmed that this is the case as of now, but this is absolutely no surprise. We heard last Friday at the pre-draft press conference that they were still working towards a long-term deal to Cam Robinson, and it was a work in progress. So, John, we talked about it in the last segment, that it's really not changing anything for the guys that want Ekwonu or want Neal as the number 1 overall pick. When you look at this, they both have the versatility to play other positions. You would imagine Cam Robinson is still your left tackle, and it doesn't hurt to push other guys on the offensive line to solidify your starters.
Well, you've reached a time in the NFL again, like we said earlier. If this had been 15 years ago, then I think you sign Cam Robinson to a long-term deal, and you say, hey, no way conceptually can we invest a number 1 draft pick in a right tackle or a guard. I don't think you would invest it in a guard if you thought he was going to be there forever, but you're also not taking the number 1 overall pick with the idea that you're solving a 2-year need. So for the long-term good of the franchise, if you believe that Ekwonu or Neal are the best player in this draft and they can play guard, I think you take them, you put them at guard, and then you think about this offensive line, Schlin, you have either Jawan Taylor or Walker Little on the right, you have Cam Robinson on the left. You have the center who I think it's going to be Tyler Shatley, but I think the draft also could have something to say about that. You have Brandon Scherf, a 5-time Pro Bowler, and then if you have Ekwonu at guard, well, I think it was on our Huddle Up podcast with Bucky Brooks yesterday on Tuesday that he said Doug Peterson, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, had a team where he felt like they could do whatever they want running or passing because of their offensive line. And if you visualize that Super Bowl back then, the Eagles during that game against the Patriots were able to run effectively in situations where you would normally be passing. They were able to run and have a balanced offense because of that. That leads me to believe Doug Peterson loves that. If you have an offensive line that can do that, then that becomes the core and the strength of your team. Is that the direction they're going? I don't know. But that would make sense if you believe, okay, we signed Cam Robinson and you're taking Ekwonu. People are like, what are they doing? That would be what they're doing.
Yes.
And, there is a school of thought where you take your strength and make it the absolute strength, and then you build your offense around that. I don't know if that's what I would do. I haven't been thinking that way leading to the draft, but that makes sense based on what you're hearing. If it was a done deal defensive end, I think we'd have heard it was a done deal defensive end by now. I think it's still an option. So if Ekwonu's the guy, and I feel like it would be Ekwonu over Neal at this point just based on the reports, that would be the thought, and I don't think it's a horrible thought.
No, it isn't. And when you think of Doug Peterson, and you know he's an offensive line guy, you know he's an offensive guy, you say that for the matter of fact. And I keep going back to we keep saying it, there's no home run of this draft. And everyone says, well, yeah, but the Jaguars won 3 games last year, and they need help right now. I hear that. I hear that side of it, and I hear the defensive end argument for that. But Trevor Lawrence, you have to pay him at some point. This is your franchise guy, and if it means it's not an immediate impact to draft one of these offensive tackles, but it pays off in 3 years, then it's worth it.
Yeah,
but I get the need to fix it right now, right here and now.
It's fine to say fix it here and now, and it's fine for fans to talk about that, and it's fine for that to be discussed in the draft room. But once you get on the clock for that number 1 pick, if you're Trent Baalke, if you're Doug Peterson, if you're Shad Khan, and everybody's putting their heads together, at some point during that conversation, there has to be a backup moment where they say, okay, what are we doing here? What is the big picture? What are we trying to get out of this pick? What is the mission statement for the pick? The mission statement is get the best guy who you feel like is going to be a franchise guy, who is going to be a player that you can build around. There's not a lot of players on this team right now where you think, okay, that guy might be the best at his position in the league in 2 or 3 years. There's Trevor Lawrence would fit that. You could foresee him being that. Josh Allen has that kind of ability on defense. He hasn't lived up to it yet, but he has that kind of ability. It's not unreasonable to think maybe he becomes that guy. Beyond that, there's not really that. You need to make sure this number 1 pick has that feel to it and is a realistic guy who can be that in 5 or 6 years. It's hard in this day and age to say a guy is a 10-year player because the league changes so fast.
Right.
But conceptually, goal-wise, that's what this guy needs to be. If they think it's an offensive lineman, there's a place where you can go fit. Bucky Brooks on the Huddle Up yesterday also made a good point. You can take a offensive lineman at number 1 and guarantee that he has a spot somewhere easier than you can perhaps an edge rusher.
For sure.
You can move him around more. Now, realistically, if you draft an edge rusher, he's going to have a spot. But his point was there are multiple ways you can use that guy. You know you're not going to have that number 1 pick go to waste, and you know he's going to be a productive player for you. So offensive line, the more you talk about it, the more you really examine it, still makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And I was off that train for about 3 months, but I'm back on the train, Schlin.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were at the Combine a couple months ago and we were talking so much about offensive line, and then they franchise tagged Cam Robinson while we were at the Combine, and everyone said, oh, well, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
We'll just leave that conversation. And truthfully, Trayvon Walker, because we left before those workouts, he really wasn't in the conversation
Right.
at all. It was Evan Neal absolutely dominant, and then Aiden Hutchinson was the guy that you talked about after Cam Robinson got traded. So I always think it's funny to revisit what we always think at the Combine, how it's incredibly wrong.
Yeah, it's never that great to go back and listen to what you said about the draft 2 months ago, because it changes so fast, and you're really in a learning curve at the Combine. So we'll see.
We will see. All right, coming up on Jaguars Drive Time, Brian Sexton is live from Las Vegas with all things draft. Stay with us on the Jaguars Digital Network.
Fans like you have been told that going all out is going too far. But fans like you know better. You're the kind of fan who loves the team as much as your pet, who paints yourself for game days and dyes your pet's fur to match. You are a rare breed. You are a pet fanatic, equal parts pet obsessed and diehard sports fan. At Pet Paradise, they're crazy about pets too. The official pet care provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pet Paradise. It's a new day in pet care.
At VyStar Credit Union, you inspire us to deliver on our promise, to do good for our members and our communities. That's why we offer more banking options, like better rates and no hidden fees. We also give back, donating several $1 million to hundreds of nonprofits each year. Better financial lives, stronger communities. VyStar Credit Union. Do good. Bank better. Visit vystarcu.org/join. Insured by NCUA.
Your family isn't like anyone else's. Your home shouldn't be either. At Dreamfinders Homes, you can build the home of your dreams in one of their 30-plus communities in Northeast Florida. Choose from luxury single-family homes or maintenance-free townhomes from the 300s. Dreamfinders specializes in homes built to fit your lifestyle. To find out more, call 904-431-0006 or visit dreamfindershomes.com.
We're back, Jaguars Drive Time Wednesday, brought to you by Jet Home Loans, getting ready for this big draft party behind us as the first round of the NFL draft is tomorrow. No secret, the Jaguars have the #1 overall pick, so Vegas is stirring about who the Jaguars are going to take. We bring in our co-host, Brian Sexton, now, who is live from Las Vegas, landed last night. Brian, tell me what you have seen so far.
Well, good morning, guys. It's, what is it, about 8:30 out here. The sun is coming up, and it's bright and sunny and warm. And let's get you a look at the Bellagio Fountain and the NFL draft stage behind me. This place is tailor-made for the NFL draft. I mean, I know I said earlier this week, if you just put it in Nashville, I'd be happy. But from the moment we got off the plane yesterday, Vegas has embraced this draft. And there were players typical of Vegas, right? Aiden Hutchinson, Evan Neal, Trent McDuffie, the corner from Washington, who were holding court in the middle of Las Vegas airport with people crowding all around. This place has certainly grabbed a hold of this thing, and dare I say, it's tailor-made for it.
And Brian, tell us about that #1 overall pick. I know you saw Hutchinson in the airport, and we just saw the news about Cam Robinson and the new deal. Does that change anything for you? I know you're an Ekwonu guy, and we knew this deal was coming,
Yep.
but what do you think?
It doesn't change anything as far as I'm concerned, Ashlyn. I heard John earlier, and I'm in agreement with him. You're looking for the player that fits your team best at #1. This year, it's either going to be an offensive lineman or an edge rusher. To my way of thinking, Ekam Ekwonu is Quentin Nelson. So stop thinking about where he plays on the line and start looking at his talent. The guy is legitimately a Pro Bowl caliber, even all-pro caliber talent. Now, does that guarantee he gets there? Well, no, it certainly doesn't. Where they put him, how they coach him, what they ask him to do, you're looking at #1, not for a right tackle or a left tackle. You're looking for the best player who fits your team. And to my way of thinking, and my understanding is a lot of people in this league think Doug Peterson believes that Ekwonu is that guy as well. It's worth noting here, I was talking to some folks last night, and nobody is sure of what's coming from Jacksonville. In fact, I had one guy say, I heard about Trent Baalke's agent who thinks this. Okay, wait a sec now. If that's the source, if that's where we're quoting, we're reaching way out there, because all of you were with me last Friday when Doug and Trent smiled and said their wives don't even know what they're doing. So there's a lot of intrigue at the top of this draft, because the belief is that if the Jaguars take Ekwonu, then is Hutchinson automatically going to Detroit? And there's this school of thought that says that that's not guaranteed either. As much as he fits them, that's not a guarantee either, because guys like Derek Stingley, the corner from LSU, Levon Thibodeau, the pass rusher from Oregon, guys who have been hanging around and people have been picking and poking and trying to find out where those guys fit. They're climbing right now, and their talent and their traits are starting to take precedence over what may have happened last year. And so don't be surprised if the Jaguars pick doesn't set in motion some surprising picks in the top 10.
Brian, is there any sense at all, and I'm assuming not, is there any trade talk at all, even in the top 5? I'm assuming the Jaguars aren't going to be able to trade, and that's sort of been a deal where it's been off the table for months. But is there any talk that after the Jags there could be a trade involving the Giants, the Jets, something along those lines?
I think most people that I've talked to here believe that the first spot that might be up for grabs is the Jets at 4. Beyond that, and that's because someone would want to come up to get the edge rusher. Thibodeau is a guy all of a sudden whose name has been connected there. And so if you want to get him, you're going to have to get in front of the Giants, and the Jet spot would come into motion. But in terms of 1, 2, 3, John, you know this, we've talked about it. There are 4 or 5 offensive linemen that belong in the first round. There are 4 or 5 defensive linemen in the top 15. Teams don't have to pay what it costs to go up into the top 5 to get a player that can have a similar impact. There just aren't those extreme difference makers in this draft. And so really there's not a lot of trade talk at all until you got outside the top 5. Start looking at what Carolina may or may not do. Is Atlanta a team with the pick at number 8 that's in play? A lot of folks that I've talked to out here believe that's maybe the first spot where you see a team that's in love with a player. And Jordan Davis, the big defensive tackle from Georgia's name, has been linked to that top 10 now all of a sudden, because teams want to get in front of Baltimore and come up and get him. So I don't see anything in the top 5 based on the conversations I'm having with people, but don't be surprised if 6, 7, and 8 aren't in play.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially for Atlanta and Jordan Davis. So there are 3 of the 4 that we assume the Jaguars are picking number 1 overall in Vegas, and Trayvon Walker is the one that is not there. He is in Atlanta watching the draft. So, Brian, you are going to get to interview the number 1 overall pick. You will be the representation of the Jaguars, no pressure, and I know you are an Ekwonu guy. So, if he is the number 1 overall pick, what are you asking him?
Well, my first question is to see if maybe he could sing a little bit. You know, he sang both the bass and tenor in the high school choir, and I'm sure his heart will be singing as he thinks I'm the number 1 overall pick. Let's see if his heart and his tongue can combine to sing a beautiful song for Jaguars fans. Hey, look, I think the guy is an absolute knockout of a player, and a guy that if you add him to the offensive line, you've got a player who not only is really talented, but I think he's super safe. I think he's the kind of guy who can make things happen and be a long-term fixture for your football team. So, I mean, the smile on his face will say it all. You know, if it's Trayvon Walker, we won't get to talk to him because he's not here. So I'd like it to be Ekwonu selfishly, because I'd like to let that joy come through our camera lens and through people's phones and enjoy the moment with the Jaguars' first pick tonight. Hey, one more thing I want to share with you, and that is that there seems to be this school of thought that there's going to be a run on cornerbacks before there is a run on wide receivers. You're going to see Stingley's name is shooting up the board. Trent McDuffie's name is all of a sudden being bandied about, 12, 13. There is a limited number of impact corners, day 1 corners in this draft, and there's some people here who think they're going to go faster than the receivers. So watch that development tomorrow night.
Very interesting. Well, Brian Sexton, thank you so much for joining us from Vegas. It's a little early to go to the casino, and I know you're a little busy, but we hope you win lots
I've already
of
been there.
money.
I'm up already.
I knew it. I knew I had faith in you. Brian, thanks so much. We will talk to you tomorrow from the NFL Draft. Have a lovely day.
You got it. Have a good morning, guys.
See ya. Much more to come here on Jaguars Drive Time. Stay with us for some closing thoughts here at Daly's Place, getting ready for a draft party tomorrow night.
The Jacksonville RV Stadium Show is coming up. From Wednesday, April 27th to Sunday, May 1st, it's all about RVs, giveaways, and fun. Check out awesome products, demos, and catch a special appearance from Jackson DeVille on Saturday, April 30th at 11 a.m. and The Roar at 2 p.m. Happening in Lot J at the stadium in downtown Jacksonville. The Jacksonville RV Stadium Show, happening Wednesday, April 27th through Sunday, May 1st.
Fans like you have been told that going all out is going too far. But fans like you know better. You're the kind of fan who loves the team as much as your pet, who paints yourself for game days and dyes your pet's fur to match. You are a rare breed. You are a pet fanatic, equal parts pet obsessed and diehard sports fan. At Pet Paradise, they're crazy about pets too. The official pet care provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pet Paradise. It's a new day in pet care.
Your family isn't like anyone else's. Your home shouldn't be either. At Dreamfinders Homes, you can build the home of your dreams in one of their 30-plus communities in Northeast Florida. Choose from luxury single-family homes or maintenance-free townhomes from the 300s. Dreamfinders specializes in homes built to fit your lifestyle. To find out more, call 904-431-0006 or visit dreamfindershomes.com.
The Jaguars are future focused and ready for a new look in 2022. Join us at the bank this season as head coach Doug Peterson and quarterback Trevor Lawrence lead the charge. To lock in your seats, visit jaguars.com/tickets or call 904-633-2000. We're back, Jaguars Drive Time Wednesday for one more segment as the draft party is getting set up. It's about done as of now. We have rehearsals this afternoon. Myself and T-Roy will be the host, and we have lots going on. Head coach Doug Peterson will be on the stage. We have a player panel talking all about the future of this team, along with many, many more things. So if you are thinking of coming to the draft party, register on jaguars.com. Come hang out with us. John, what do you have going on tomorrow?
Well, I'll have draft coverage. I'll be on there with you guys as well. And, you know, I know we're supposed to talk about coverage. Something Brian said was fascinating to me.
Fascinating.
If there's a run on corners.
You've been thinking about this.
Well, first of all, I'd be shocked because we're in an era right now where the cornerback position, the league is trying to legislate defense off the field.
Yeah.
So why not take receivers? But if there's that run on corners, then all of a sudden 33, which we'll be talking about on Friday during the draft, all of a sudden 33, does receiver come back into play? Does a couple of those guys get pushed back down? So I know coverage is sort of the thing. That's my coverage, son. I'll be writing about that. I'll be talking about that concept. But that, you know, if there's a run, if 2 or 3 corners get into the first round that you're not expecting, then maybe a couple of those receivers that you assume will be out of the mix could come back into play at wide receiver. So food for thought, as they say.
Yeah, and we talked about it really a lot a couple of weeks ago, is the 33rd overall pick and possibly trading up to get that receiver. From what we've discussed, it doesn't seem like they're doing that. I don't want to take that off the table, but it doesn't seem like that's a thought. And we always thought that was an awesome option. You have all this draft capital, go up to 25, 22.
Well, again, if a receiver you like gets pushed down and gets into that 25, 26 range, then all of a sudden maybe you have a little bit more ammo, a little better shot to do it. That would be fascinating to me.
It was. We have so many fascinating things going on this week. Very interesting. Well, stay with us on Jaguars.com for all of your draft coverage. We will see you here at Daly's Place tomorrow night for the NFL Draft, and we will stay with you all weekend long on Jaguars.com. Thanks for tuning in to Jaguars Drive Time.